Hi, today the Better Minneapolis podcast is coming from Jungle Theater, and I'm here with Christina Baldwin, the artistic director, and Rachel Murch, who is the managing director. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Terry.
Okay, great. So we're here talking today. If you're not familiar, they are located in the Lindell Lake area, so a lot has been going on in this location, and so we thought it would be great to get together and hear an on-the-ground sort of perspective of their experience, and also maybe to just learn a little bit more about the Jungle Theater and encourage some people to come in. So
We love it.
why don't you start by giving us a little history of the theater?
Little history. It was started, well, we've been at this location since 1999, and this used to be a bar called Knickers, and it had, I guess, the information that goes is that it had the most 911 calls of any bar in Minneapolis at the time.
Okay.
So the city was motivated to help work with Bain Belke, the founding artistic director, to move from a small storefront on Lake Street to this location, and they opened up in 1999, and we've been here doing that ever since then. I've been here for probably around 10 years in different capacities, but in my capacity as artistic director going on 6 years now. And the Jungle Theater is just under 150 seats.
Right.
It's a beautiful, beautiful space where there's not a bad seat in the house. We do intimate productions where you really feel both the performers on stage and the audience has a really great need for one another, and you feel it when you're in the space. And we have a great attention to the craftsmanship that goes on at every level of putting on a piece of theater. Would you add anything to that, Rachel?
No, I think that was a great summary. We do, one of the things that's unique about the Jungle is that we are also the smallest IATSE house in the Twin Cities. And so we have union stagehands as well as having union actors. So we are very proud of being a people-first kind of theater. So.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, it must have been a pretty darn big bar because this is,
Right?
okay.
Well, this was the exterior wall. You can see this cement here. So this stuff was
So
built on after.
Yeah, the
addition to
stage
bar.
itself was added on as onto the back of the building, but
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah. But it's beautiful space, and I'm sure there are many stories held within these walls.
Well, great. Tell me a little bit about your current production, The Cherry Orchard.
Yes, it's a co-production with a company called The Moving Company, which are a group of artists that also came out of Theatre de la Jeune Lune, which had its start all throughout Minneapolis, but had a building for many years in what is now the North Loop area of Minneapolis. I think their building is a church now. And we have a production that's on stage that's gorgeous. It is an adaptation of The Cherry Orchard by Chekhov, and it's re-envisioned with a smaller cast of characters, so there's role doubling, but it doesn't lose the feeling of the piece. And it is one of those plays that the history goes that it was Chekhov intended it to be a comedy, and Stanislavski, who was the first director of it, envisioned it as a tragedy. And so there you go, and those are the times we're living in. So
Oh, that's good to know. I haven't studied that much plays, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've certainly heard of this one, and
you don't need to study them to come
come
enjoy,
enjoy,
Terry.
yeah.
okay. And so, in general, maybe with this production, but obviously this was, I'm sure your attendance, like everyone else, was affected by COVID and the uprising and things. Have you seen people, slowly coming back? I mean, how has that been?
Yeah, we have seen audiences come back. I I think a lot of it sometimes depends on what the show is, and what time of year it is and what else is happening. The Twin Cities has a super vibrant theater community, so at any given moment there could be 13 shows playing, and so we're all kind of vying for a similar audience. So sometimes it can be difficult to get audiences in, but post-pandemic, post all of that, people are back. We are seeing a shift in who those people are. So there may be some people who, after the pandemic, decided not to come back to theater for various reasons, but we are seeing a lot of new audiences. A lot of our shows have sometimes 50% of our audience is people who've never been to the Jungle before. So that's a really exciting thing for us, and I hope that everyone else in the Twin Cities is experiencing that as well.
Yeah, but Rachel raised a really good point too, which is since the pandemic, the seasons that theaters can program have contracted quite a bit. So you don't have the same robust amount of plays or performances that are programmed within a season. So as leaders of an org, you're having to be a lot more concise with what kind of stories that you want to be able to produce, how you can employ the people within your industry, and having an eye towards that change and trying to redefine what growth is during that time. I think pre-pandemic there were a lot of new buildings and additional stages, and I came back. I was originally from Minnesota. I moved away and came back to the cities to collaborate with the artists that are here and within this community, because it felt like Minneapolis-St. Paul really supports, and the state of Minnesota supports the arts in a way that is different than many other states. And I'm nervous about how some of those data points of that kind of support is still being relied on from pre-pandemic, and it's not reflective of the current time, and some of that support or the ways in which people want to say, oh yeah, it's more seats per capita. I'm very curious if that is still true, and whether or not the people who say those stats are actually, if the arts and culture are a value to them, and if that support can translate into a stronger channel.
So if I interpret that right, you're kind of comparing pre-pandemic to post, and whether or not the strength is coming back the way some of the statistics say it is. Is that basically it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say. I think also, you talk to anyone, as a parent, I see what the pandemic did to my children in their development, and so everyone's been affected by it in some way or another, and so I think it's more than just a simple yes, we're back. It's there's an asterisk, and at the bottom of the page it says see also rising cost of,
right.
Yeah.
It's there's so many things about it, and I know we all know it, we live it, and we don't even really quite talk about it anymore because we carry it as people and we know what that difference is. We see it in the housing market, we see it in the businesses, we see it everywhere.
Well, you mentioned that sometimes there's 13 different productions going on. I mean, that to me seems like, oh, well, if I was an actor, that means there's some good work out there. And I know a lot of the people in the creative arts struggled during the pandemic.
Yep.
Are they finding jobs more easily now, or is that still really a struggle for people who work in the arts?
It's a struggle, I would say. I mean, I think it's come back and some employment opportunities have been there, but we are in an economy where our people were a lot of seasonal and gig workers, and that support system wasn't there. When I started here as artistic director, we decided to also instate a leadership cohort model, which really was an investment in local artists to help them understand more about how theater is made, how particularly our theater is made and how it runs, and how we have a more direct tie to freelance artists in our neighborhood. and in our community, because we do have the ecosystem is wide in that we have a huge reputable regional theater is the Guthrie that draws people in. You also have a lot of commercial touring theater that happens, but you also have small theater that is made by folks who don't have a particular brick and mortar space, and that is the predictor of a healthy ecosystem. Is that if the people within that ecosystem can continue to get robust work and keep their skill level growing, that's what makes it a healthy ecosystem. And I do worry about that because there was a lot of attrition during COVID of folks who couldn't make a living anymore in this business. And so we saw a lot of people with, it's interesting, it's like there are folks who have been able, of a certain age, who have weathered the storm, and then there's young people coming up, but there's a chunk in the middle that I think, again, in a healthy ecosystem, you have a mentorship of information that's passed between, and there's been hiccups, and when we see it, and we're trying to figure out how do we help it still grow. I don't know if you would add anything.
No, I mean, I think that also, is seen in, like I mentioned, we have IATSE stagehands, and there was a time during COVID where a lot of stagehands were either getting older and decided to retire because there was no work, or people who didn't want to have to wait or couldn't wait until work came back to do the sort of technician kind of work that they did. So they left the union and they went and found other jobs. So there's also, that sort of build back up of people in that workforce, and our cohort now is trying to figure out ways that we can sort of help be a place where people who want to work on the technical side of things of theater have a place to come and be in a union house and learn those skills, because there were a lot of people who left that. So, I mean, now we're, 5 years, I guess, into this, and I think that things are getting better for people. It's definitely not what it was pre-pandemic. A lot of that also has to do with the way that nonprofit theater is funded has changed since the pandemic. And so when we say that there's 12 or 13 shows happening, it's because all of us do 3 or 4 shows a year instead of 6 or 7 or 8, but we all have them at exactly the same time. Because it's, having one in the early fall is the perfect time, and then having one over the holidays is the perfect time, and then having one in the spring is the perfect time. So if you want to see theater in the Twin Cities, you can go those 3 times and see everything, but then there are also times when there's not as much playing. So I feel like actors and designers and all that, there's a lull in when there's work and when there isn't. Maybe that didn't exist pre-pandemic because people were programming the entire year.
Yeah, I can see how that'd be really difficult if your livelihood is dependent on 3 main periods of time. I mean, you must employ a lot of people here, everything from lighting to, is it grips?
Yeah, I mean, they're different. I mean, it's different roles. It's a very good question because those skills translate to other things. So we have a lot of really great skilled technicians, craftspeople who will work, say, on a film set where there is work as a grip. But a lot of the artisans and craftspeople that we have here and technicians are folks who have honed their skills in live performance and on the stage here and in various theaters. But it's hard too because post-pandemic too, a lot of the venues have changed and slimmed down, and so there's just a lot more competition for the same amount of time, and then it's hard because you get one gig and then you'll have months where there's no work, and then you'll have 3 offers at the same time, and it's how do you make that work? So for your whole year, we see the difficulties and the challenges that people are having to figure out in their own worlds.
So you mentioned how funding for theater has changed, and you have a unique ticket pricing model, I think, where it's pay what you can. Did you start that after the pandemic? Has it always been that way? And are you finding success with that model?
We are finding success with it, and it was not always that way. It did start in 2021, 22. It was modeled after our friends at Theater Moo, who have a model that was the inspiration called Pay As You Are ticket pricing. So it's a sliding scale, and it was in response to all the things, right? Where things were more expensive, but we survive on getting more people to know what we do, and we want to welcome in younger folks. And there is still a value of a certain ticket price that would be fantastic for us to make, but rather than having all these hoops for people to jump through of like, get this code and do this discount, we want it to be something that's much more accessible for all.
Yeah.
And Rachel, you can speak to.
Well, yeah, so tickets are $15 is the lowest price, and there's no fees or anything on that, so you can come and sit here and see an amazing show for $15. And the ticket prices go all the way up to $95. Our market value is $55. We say that's what, if we set a price, that's what we think that the seat would be worth. And so we invite people to pay whatever they can. And we also invite people who may have access to more funds to pay higher than that ticket price to sort of pay it forward to other people. And we do see a lot of, I would also say like 50% of our audience is people using our pay-as-you-are tickets. And it does make it extremely accessible for anybody, right? You can go to the movies or you can come see a live theater show, and it can be the same price. And I think it does allow people who haven't been to the Jungle before or haven't been to a theater before to say, I want to try that out, and the investment that I have to make isn't that big, right? I only have to pay $15. I can see if it's something that is for me, if it's something that I enjoy, if it's something I want to be part of my regular life. But you don't have to make that huge financial commitment. Because, if you're going to bring your family of 4 to see a show at any theater, it could be hundreds of dollars, right? And so you can come here and it is less. And we just want to make sure that anyone who wants to come see the show can. We also have, during our preview performances, so the 3 shows before we open, the first 2 rows are free, and it's always the case for our previews. So if even $15 is a barrier, we also have other options for people, because we just want to make sure that the art that gets created on this stage is seen by as many people as possible, and that money isn't what keeps them out of our doors.
Well, I am going to come in because it has been a while since I've been here, and I do want to support and see an interesting show. So moving on a little bit, let's just talk about the city in general and the area that you're in. You were just coming from this ULI meeting.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot afoot in Uptown area to try and bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see progress right now?
I do see it. I think the hardest part is that we are caught in the middle of a lot of time of perception versus reality, and miscommunication versus robust communication, and separating fact from opinion in general.
A little bit more detail behind
vague.
that.
That's vague.
Like
but
communication about what in particular, like the street redesign?
Yeah,
or
we are here at Lynn Lake. We're on Lyndale Avenue, very close to Lake Street, and we are considered part of Uptown. And so all of the construction that happened on Hennepin, and they're reopening on Friday, I think is the date, there has been an effect on us, and we have seen a lot of our friends on the street have to leave this area, or we have some businesses that are no longer there, restaurants that have had a hard time making it
I think,
happen.
isn't the Brewery,
Lynn
right?
Lake Brewery just
Lynn Lake
closed, yeah.
Brewery.
And some of those restaurant closures are preemptive, knowing that there's impending construction on Lindale in 2027. Lagos Tacos has another location and wanted to put their resources into that location instead of trying to keep this open, knowing that this construction is happening, and what may happen here is what we all saw happen over the last 18 months on Hennepin, with businesses closing or struggling to survive. So it's something that's out there, but you know, the more restaurants that are in this neighborhood, the better that we do, because then
Sure.
there's a reason for people to come here, and us being here is also helpful to the restaurants. So we do have this very like symbiotic relationship, but right now I think it's being tested. There's some restaurants closing just because it's really hard to do anything right now, and other businesses. So it's an interesting time for this neighborhood, but I also think that there's this perception that there's dangerousness in this neighborhood that doesn't really exist. If you watch the news and you only hear what people who live outside of this area say, that like Minneapolis is still burning down and it's crime everywhere and you can't walk anywhere and your car's going to get stolen and all of these things, which isn't really the reality of this neighborhood and most of Minneapolis. But it is the perception, and so we always try to, especially with our patrons and all of that, is to reassure people that the neighborhood is safe. You can park your car in the lot behind our theater and you don't have to worry. But I feel like there's no favors being done by, especially, you know, when things do happen in this neighborhood, and then there's news crews here, and then they show our giant mural in the back that says Jungle Theater, and then so now they're talking about some bad thing that happened, and then all people see on the news is Jungle Theater, and so
Right.
it definitely does, I think, perpetuate this perception. But at least in our experience over the last couple of years, it's completely safe for people to come to and enjoy. It's an urban environment, right?
Yeah.
That is changing, and
Yeah, and the conversations that we're having with folks, I think a lot of it, again, we're like, our whole business is communication, right? Essentially, we're telling stories, and the story that the city needs to tell is one of all the vibrant people who are here trying to make it happen, and we need to have better communication together, and that's all it comes down to, is that oftentimes change doesn't happen, or the advocacy doesn't happen when you're a single entity, and I think that's the thing that we're always, I was saying that we're uptown, but we're not. We're on a city road, but it's not. It's a county road. There are all these things that the Jungle Theater resides on a very interesting, it's not quite Lake Street, it's not quite uptown. We're on a county road, not a city road, and so we're always on the edges of these things. So we see what it is when people aren't communicating well with each other, and when there are these great initiatives that work for people who are in tidy areas or neighborhoods, but we are a connective tissue. We bring in people from the suburbs to come see shows here, as well as our local community. We employ over 100 folks per year and artists, and we invest in local artists, as well as are part of the national landscape of how plays advance through our country.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it kind of seems like you're saying the theater is getting left out of some of the conversation, that when people normally think about like businesses and bringing back uptown and stuff, the theater gets kind of left out of the conversation a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Well,
Thanks for making us
thanks
a part
for
of this
tying it up with a
conversation.
nice little bow.
So you mentioned that obviously you're on the edge, which what immediately came to my mind is like, well, theater should be a little edgy.
Right? I mean, we thrive there.
Yeah.
We thrive there when also the other systems are thriving.
So reconstruction of Lindale is going to be a big deal, and the county's had, they've received a lot of feedback on their plans.
Yes, they have.
And it seems like what they landed on was something that like basically nobody likes. I mean, it seems like that the biker advocates don't like it, and then the people who want more parking in the area don't like it, and so how are how are you preparing for the construction? Like, are you still just kind of uncertain, or are you, planning a whole communication strategy around it, or how do you prepare for something like that?
I mean, I think the only way that we can prepare, I mean, there's two different scenarios, right? Like the construction affects us in such a way that we have to, for that year or 18 months or however long the project is going to be, that we program somewhere else that's not in this building, right? If it's too hard for people to get here, is that an option? There are
So
things
you're
that
actually looking at other theaters.
We're seeing what all of the options are, knowing
Okay.
what
We have to
happened on
educate
Hennepin. To go, that's an option, but I think the ideal option is that we do have enough information from the city about all of the different times and ways that traffic and parking will be impeded on a daily basis so that we can communicate that with patrons. I think being able to tell people what's happening and where it's happening and where they can drive and where they can park is going to be the thing that keeps us going, but it all depends on making sure that there is that communication from the city so that, because I know driving when all this other construction was happening, it's like one day the right lane would be closed and then the next day the left lane would be closed and there would be no signs to tell you which day which lane was going to be closed. And and in my experience, I feel like it makes people not want to go somewhere then. When it's like, I don't know what's happening, I'm just going to stay away. So making sure that we have enough information so that people don't stay away.
And is it the city or the county that needs to prepare people along this corridor, or is that part
I
of the
think it's
confusion?
a dual. I think
Dual
both of them do,
responsibility,
right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, from what I know, and I am not a county or city employee.
Right.
But again, goes back to my theme of communication and cooperation amongst all of our elected officials. Is how do we work together so that we don't have surprises for folks? And talking with friends who have businesses along Hennepin, they're opening this Friday, and that's fantastic, but they were largely out in the cold for 18 months over there. And so we are optimistic pragmatists here, and so we're trying to do our due diligence of studying and planning and learning what the options are, because we do really value the arts in Minnesota and the people who make it happen. And we know that the Jungle is an iconic cornerstone place in the cities, and we're the caretakers of that now, and we want to make sure that it continues on. So sometimes I think, like with everything, even the communication, I'm concerned about how are people getting their information about what's happening in the cities, not only in a governmental capacity, and these kind of interviews help us share information, but we're looking at a huge seismic shift within our industry of, we used to have Star Tribune, Pioneer Press, City Pages, different publications that helped get the word out about what is happening in our community, and that's all shifted. So
Yeah, that reminds me, does anyone come and review the productions? I mean, I don't recall seeing them, maybe.
Yep, they do. There have been huge cuts, and now I believe that we are down to one reviewer in some of our major newspapers, and that's more than they can handle in a community that's supposedly having a very thriving and supported arts org.
Also programs all at the same time. So
Right.
one reviewer can't see 10 shows in a week and a half.
And
unless that's all they
yeah.
do. So and then write about it, it's a little bit much. So
Yep, and a lot of these larger orgs, I will say larger media orgs, will base their assignments based on
Size of the venue.
size of the venue, accessibility of noteworthiness of the piece, and if things aren't so niche, and how many clicks and how much readership. It's the commodity of our attention. And again, if we are an edgy org that's wanting to innovate and create things that aren't expected, I mean, that's why you come to the theater, is to find a surprise. That rubric is not going to help us. So we are trying to find ways to, and also there are really great publications around that have cropped up, and the way in which that we find dependable information and separate the fact from fiction. It's a new scene, and so trying to find out what those models are and change with it, and try to think in advance of that is also part of our job.
So I want to circle back to the concept of like people taking photos out front here and including jungle theater, and I can see how that would be bad for attendance, and it's a real struggle, I feel like, with this election, because a lot of people are worried about public safety, obviously, and there was like a big shooting not far from here, so that you want people to feel like it's safe to come into the city and explore the great things it has to offer, and at the same time you want to be realistic about what's going on, and there's a lot of discussion about it, obviously, because we have an election in a week from now. How do you think those things are playing out in the election, and do you have confidence that we're on the right track to overcoming both the reality of crime in the city and the perception that's out there? Is that too much? Do I?
No. I mean, I'm hopeful that whatever happens with the election, that whoever becomes mayor, we're on a path to sort of, again, like curtail crime, but also like change the perception. I would love whoever is mayor to sort of, and we've actually met with several of the candidates just to talk about like the jungle's role in this neighborhood and how they see the arts being an important part of the Lynn Lake neighborhood and Minneapolis, and how they plan on supporting the arts and all of that. And so we've had these conversations with some of the candidates, but it's also the idea, I mean, it's such a weird time right now, right? That I feel like I don't know that whoever is elected can really get a handle on whatever is happening in the city, because I feel like it's bigger than the city, and it's bigger than the state, and it's bigger than all of us. And so
define that a little bit. When you say it's weird right now, what does that mean?
Well, I feel like there's so much uncertainty for people. There's so much. People don't have as much money as they used to have. People are struggling financially. People are scared of things happening in their neighborhoods. They're scared of ICE. They're scared of all of these things. They're scared about rights being taken away. And so cuts to jobs. All of these people just announced layoffs at Paramount and at Target and at UPS and all of these other places. So I feel like when that happens, like there is an instability in the way people act too, right? And so I don't know, and I feel like this is getting bigger than the jungle and bigger than Minneapolis, but I don't know that whoever gets elected mayor can really get a handle on that, because there's so much out of our control. Right. But I would love to see whoever it is also try to change the narrative about what Minneapolis is, right? I don't think we see a lot of that publicly. I would like to see a champion of all of the different neighborhoods and what they have to offer, and less seeing only coverage of those neighborhoods when things happen, when bad things happen there.
Well, I heard this recently at a conference that I thought was funny. It was that the news doesn't cover like all the successful takeoffs and landings at the airport. They cover the crash.
Right, and that's what,
Yeah, no, I think it's really true. It's having a realistic view of the job and the time, but still having optimism for what it needs, and realism for what it needs. Because for me, it's really about like, if you don't go there, if you aren't giving attention to something, it will atrophy. And so where are the places that are out of balance? Where have we been largely looking away, hoping that it's all just going to take care of itself? Where is it that there are difficult conversations? Is like, it's hard to communicate with people, and it's hard to, in this day and age too, when there is such, like, I always talk about this like feeling of like existential dread that
Yeah.
I feel
The mayor
for
can't
people.
solve that?
Right. There is that.
I mean, if one of them could, they would
Right.
absolutely be elected,
Yeah,
right?
right.
This would be a
Right.
landslide.
But I keep coming back to communication, and like, it doesn't mean we're going to find the solution right then, but it's like how we create a piece. You do the first bad idea, and it leads to a better one. And I think the only way to do that is if you give attention to it and talk about it, and are not afraid to be wrong every now and then, but to not afraid to hear that you're wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a couple of things that seems like keep us stuck a little bit, right? One, I feel like, politicians do get attacked, in an extreme way when they put something out there and it's wrong or the outcome isn't. And so I feel like that makes for some more timid solutions, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that, occurred to me when you were talking is that, yes, you want the mayor, you want your local city council person to be kind of the cheerleader for the city and the arts and telling people this is great, but they keep getting kind of dragged back into the conflicts of the past, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you balance that where you recognize spikes in crime or some police brutality that's happened, or all these very real significant problems that were in the past, but you still need someone who can recognize that, treat it as worth attention, but also be the cheerleader for the city. You know?
Well, I mean, even in this ULI meeting that I had this morning, I was part of some of the.
And what's that stand for again?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask me this.
I should know too. I read it. Something
Urban
landscape.
Land.
Urban Landscape Institute.
Yes,
Urban,
I
yes.
think so.
Okay.
Yes.
And the
That sounds right.
and then the TAP that you're talking about is Technical Assistance Program.
Yes.
And so TAP.
That's what I was going to say, Terry.
TAP is funded by the city, and it's a way to help local businesses get together and develop skills and plans and communicate, as you're talking about. And they've hired this company called ULI to help gather community feedback.
Yes.
Right?
And the people who are on the panel are volunteering their time. So they're folks with a lot of great different perspectives, and folks locally, nationally, internationally that have been brought in to share a perspective of what has worked in their communities, what could work, how could we envision. But getting back to that question of like, we have to be able to have a vision of what we want and not always just go back to the same chew toy of what was bad and this is horrible and this is bad. Like in these conversations, we have to be able to, and I'm not saying in a Pollyanna way of like, we're gonna all, it's like,
Right.
no. But if we can think about what it would look like to be thriving, to have a feeling and a perception both of safety in a neighborhood, then we can get to it and we can start making the steps towards it. But until we can do that, and so I do think we even try to diminish it by calling it cheerleading, because I use the same language, but it's not. It's called envisioning what could be. And not in an unrealistic way, but in a very planful, authentic way of what has worked before and how can we build on that and think about new ideas that we don't know yet. So those are the things I hope for.
And that envisioning that you're talking about, I think that's what this program is hoping to do. It's not just about Lindale. It's like, how do we strengthen this whole area?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, largely, the TAP report, there are a few Lindale folks as a part of this that I saw, but it's a huge amount of folks who are mainly more in the centralized towards Hennepin that are part of this, and so I'm very grateful that we are a part of it as well. But again, it's hard when we have all these initiatives and we have cultural corridors or things like that. What happens to the folks who are on the edges, who don't quite qualify for the support and the initiatives? How are we, and I understand that at different levels of government you have to be able to, okay, this is where we're concentrating on our efforts. But again, if we can try to have a vision of who else is part of that, then maybe we could have a better idea moving forward of what that support actually looks like.
Mm-hmm. And I know, like last week I attended an event held by the Uptown Association. They're exploring this idea of a business improvement district, a bid. Is that something that the Jungle Theater supports or would participate in, or is that another avenue you think that might help the area? I don't know.
I mean, yeah. I mean, frankly, I need to be better educated on that, and I was meeting some people today that I would like to connect with at the Uptown Association, because I do think there's a lot of great energy there around that, and it is something that we have to do. We're just in a unique position, too, because we're a nonprofit theater in the arts amongst a lot of small businesses,
Mm-hmm.
and so we wear both hats of having to find our footing from the changes within our funding structure and all the chaos at the NEA, to state support that has dwindled, to all of these things, and then we also have to have the small business hat on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
so
we do partner with like the Lake
Yep.
Street Council and the Lynn Lake Business Association to do various things. So we definitely have like our hands in those places. So I feel like as many of those that exist, that we can sort of also all work together. Because
Yeah.
I feel like the ultimate goal is all the same for all of us, right? We want all
Yeah.
the businesses and people that live in this area to thrive. And we want safe neighborhoods, and we want all of the same things. So like, how can we all actually work together? Because sometimes it does feel like they're segmented, where there's like, this business association is just for this like corner. And then there's the Lake Street
Right.
Council that like, if you're off of Lake Street, we might still work with you, but not all the time. And so it's like, how do we sort of put a bigger umbrella over all of us?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because the sort of those groups, the associations, the different nonprofits, a lot of them are so specific. It does seem complicated in navigating them in a way that's similar to what you find with our government structure, because it's like, not only is there the city, there's the county, there's the municipal council, there's, federal stuff, state stuff, and so, we have multiple layers on both sides of that equation, the government and the nonprofit sector. And it does seem like sometimes there can be duplication or just intimidation of trying to navigate all that.
yeah,
It is,
and I mean, I often think about this. I mean, not to go on a tangent, but like to negotiate, say, healthcare, and if there's a change in it, and if English wasn't your first language, and if you don't have 6 hours of a day to set aside and be like, I'm just going to be on a phone trying to get help,
Yeah,
it's like the actual task that it is on a to-do sheet, and the actual time that it takes to get all of the best information and get to that there's not a to-do sheet that's big enough
Right,
for
yeah.
those things. And
It's like, call healthcare providers
Right.
the top line, and then you're page through here. And,
yeah, and it would take your whole notebook. So.
Well, speaking of, I want one final question, because I don't want to spend too much time talking about the federal government, but you mentioned like chaos in the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts. What does that mean exactly? Are they facing the type of firings or reduction in funds? Maybe you could just spell that out a little bit more. What does that mean, chaos in the NEA?
Well, I mean, for us, it means there was some specific sort of restrictions put on what they would fund for their specifically like theater programming grants, and so they
No subversive theater.
basically they prioritized things that celebrated the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And they, when theaters, now I think there's a court case involving this part, but they wanted theaters who got grants to sign something that said that they wouldn't participate in gender ideology, and that there would be like a limit to the DEI initiatives that you could have. And they wanted theaters to sign these things in order to get these grants. And so,
Wow, I did not know that.
yeah.
No,
And
there's
so
a lot of- there's a lot of
there's a
stuff
lot of
happening.
folks who received grants, even people in the Twin Cities who received grants in a funding cycle, so they would have gotten notification in this last fall. And then the thing about the NEA is you get the money after you do the thing, right? So they don't give you the money and then you do the thing. You do the thing, you fill out a report, they give you the money that they've awarded to you. And so these organizations were awarded money to do certain projects, and then they got a letter in April or May that said, just kidding, you don't get that money now. And they've already done these projects or committed to
Right.
these projects. And then there was folks like us who filled out grant applications, and we were supposed to find out in May, and then we didn't find out until July, and most people just got denied. And so it's this changing in the rules about what can be funded or how they're funding things, and I also think that there's just a decrease in overall funding on a federal level. So who knows what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
Minnesota Citizens for the Arts and Minnesota State Arts Board and all of these people have had plenty of panels with arts organizations around town to go, here's what you might be able to expect, here's what we can expect. I mean, they've been really great about communicating with everyone sort of the status of everything, but
And the legal implications,
Yeah.
because we don't have a legal department. We don't have, there are looming threats of legal recourse and types of censorship that are happening through funding channels that have real implications. And to get caught up having to research and make sure you know what's coming and to do your due diligence is very hard to find that time and the funds.
Well, I want to thank you for your time today. I'm going to come out and see the cherry orchard. I hope other people do too. Is there anything that we didn't cover today that you want to talk about?
I thank you for
Yeah.
this. I think, again, like the business of communication, it can be a very thorny road.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that you're doing this.
Well, I think one of the things that I've heard quite a bit from businesses around the city and yourselves is that it can be hard to feel like your perspective is getting heard at City Hall or in the, and so, I hope that this helps a little bit if you've struggled to get your, particular needs heard. So.
Yeah. We thank you, Terry.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Great. Well, thank
Yeah.
you.